What is your relationship with time? Are you wired and tired, stressed and overwhelmed, busy and going nowhere? Or just want to scale your business? Welcome to Take Back Time with your host, Penny Zenker. Penny focuses on books, strategies, tools, and tips to help you work smarter and approach your time more strategically. As a result, you can have more energy, focus, and get more done in less time. Be more efficient and effective. Get ready to take back time.
Hello and welcome to Take Back Time. My name is Penny Zenker and I'm your host. And today we are going to focus around optimizing your sales process. How can you create more with less by thinking more strategically as you approach your sales process? And today we have a special guest with us, Terry Ogburn. And Terry Ogburn is the renowned owner and lead business coach of Ogburn Business Solutions. His proprietary coaching system and personal devotion to the development of others has contributed to the success of hundreds of small to large business ventures. Terry began his business career in 1979 when he invested his last $118.42, right? That's very specific, to start an air conditioning service business. And at that time, he didn't have any car or truck, but he did have the knowledge and ability to build relationships, and that is what it took. 10 years later, he developed his own business success program based on his experience and teachings of his favorite business books, leading the founding of Ogburn Business Solutions. So without further ado, Terry, welcome to our show.
I'm glad to be here, and thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure. So we all, as entrepreneurs, I've been there too. You're down to your last $100 or whatever it is and put it all in the pot, right? You put it all on red and you go for it. So just tell us a little bit about that. Did you spend 10 years building that business? Is that what I understood?
Yes, I did, Penny. I just give you your listeners and your little background, quick story about that. I was in the car business selling cars, considered to be one of the top in the GM field, all over GM Motors. And I got fired. Because I wanted to advance. Yep, I wanted to advance. I wanted to be a sales manager, career-minded, but I was very good at sales. So my boss fired me, and then I paid up all my bills. And the apartment building that I was living in was turning condo, and it had a broken furnace duct, and I could fix that for $15. And there was 264 of these. So if you multiply that, that's about almost close to $4,000, which would give me a nice grub stake to get started. When your rent is only $135 a month, your electric bill is $35 a month, and your phone bill is $25 a month. So,
wow. Wish those prices were still relative.
Right? Anyway, just started like that, and then got into mentors and that type, and just took it for 10 years, 12 trucks, 26 people, sold it to my employees, and went into corporate arena using my system to turn around corporate companies like Radio Shack, Uniglobe Travel, Century 21, Metrocall Paging, AT&T, companies like that.
Fantastic. And I think that's the way that the best experience, right, comes to that you can be and coach others, is creating that experience for yourself. It's learning the best practices from people who have been through it and then building it on top with your own experience. And it sounds like you're an opportunity seeker, right? You saw something that needed to be fixed, so you went there and you did it. So you seem to be a problem-solving mindset. Is that true?
That's very true. The one thing I learned from a lot of my mentors over the time was, if you want to be successful, find an industry that needs help, get right in the middle of it. Because if it's messed up, you probably can make a lot of money fixing it. Like, give you a quick example. We're all in sales, and I don't care if you're the receptionist or the CEO. Everything is sales. So one of the things about sales is that you want to make sure that you find out what your customers' wants are, and their needs sometimes may be totally different. In air conditioning was when we went out to a customer's home and we diagnosed the problem, then we asked the question, when would you like us to fix your equipment? And the answer more times than not was, could you come back when? When my son comes home from work, or when my husband comes, that type of thing. So what they wanted was what they needed was their air conditioner fixed. What they wanted was it fixed on their time schedule.
Yeah, I think it's really important to listen to people, listen to the market. I forget who it was that had this famous quote of most people don't want the drill, they want the hole. So it's understanding what solution they want and then also what vehicle and tool resource they need in order to get there.
And not only that, but when you went to the technician says, well, we can't perform like that because when we're on a job, we don't know if we're going to be there an hour or 5 hours. We listened to the customer and the technician, and we took the decision-making out of their hand.
Right.
That's what made us grow into a company. When I sold it, we had over 7,000 customers that had done business with me for 3 years or longer in a service business.
That's fantastic. And so that's why you've created, I know, a proprietary process that will really help people in their sales process. And that's why today we're going to talk about that experience that you built up in those years and building that 7,000 customer base, as well as all that followed, to talk about what are some of the key factors to help salespeople to optimize their process and to be approaching their marketplace more strategically. Can you share with us what that 4-step process is? You had talked to me a little bit about it before.
Sure. But first, if you don't mind, you keyed on something in your earlier talk where the key point in sales is listening.
Mm.
See, when we're listening or we're in that mode of hearing, what we're doing is we're actually hearing about 25% of what's being said, and we're tuning out the other 75%. And this goes for our customers as well.
Every relationship, isn't it?
It truly is. It truly is. I was on with one of my clients who happens to be a top salesman in his store. And so he's in a little slump now. And I said, well, tell me about your last engagement. And he said, well, I was with this customer. And he told me that the buying process is about 6 months. And then I found out he has no money to pay for it. So I wasted all this time. Right. And I said, well, when you ask him how long it was, because one of my things is how long before you see this in your driveway type thing. And he said 6 months. Then my next question would be something like, well, what would it take to get it in your driveway today? And if the customer says, I need to hit the lottery, then maybe you don't need to talk to him so much anymore.
Right.
People will tell us the truth if we ask the question correctly.
Absolutely. I am a huge fan of asking the right questions. I think it was Einstein who had this quote that if he had 1 hour to solve the major problem in the world, he would take 55 minutes developing the right question and 5 minutes answering it, right? So having the right question is so key in getting the right answer.
Exactly. And I use that same statement as you use many times. If you have an hour to solve it, use the first 55 minutes asking questions. And that is where entrepreneurs need to be, because once an entrepreneur has all the questions answered, they should be able to make their decision in 1 minute or less.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when you ask that right question, as you said from that great example, is that you already know that this person is going to have trouble paying. So the more time that you're going to spend with them, that you won't be getting any closer to a solution. So you can stop the question answering there and save yourself a lot of time and energy, right?
Exactly. And then under my system, all we would do with that particular individual is just put him right back into the top of our funnel. He still gets our newsletter. He still gets incubated. He's still warm. And then you go up and talk to him my system is every 28 days. You just go up and talk to him and see as he moves closer, things may change in his life.
Absolutely. So let me ask you a question about that. So if I were to develop all these questions, there's a lot of talk about pre-scripting, right? A sequence as you engage with different prospects. And some people feel, I've heard them say, I don't really like working with scripts. They're so inflexible and it doesn't feel natural. What feedback would you give to them on that response?
Get over it. We're all scripted from the time we get up in the morning until we go to bed. Yes, I agree that we're uncomfortable using a script, but we shouldn't use a canned script, but we should use a script that fits our personality. Right. When I teach scripts, it's about the integrity of the script. How you put your words into it and make it, if the goal is to find out to get some help, then word your script correctly. That's all. I'm a big favor of scripts. But what I'm more in favor of is when you develop your scripts, you develop a script that is going to cause the customer to go one of two ways. If you get a script that allows the customer to have more than two ways to answer you, it's hard for you to control the pattern. If you have a script and it goes to the right, you have a rebuttal for that. If it goes to the left, you have a rebuttal for that. The whole goal is to keep them on either the left or the right side, whichever you're trying to get to the goal. Now, what's more important to me anyway is understanding there are 3 phases of a sale. Now, the first phase is what we call the appointment phase. And the goal there is to never, ever leave a conversation, whether it's in front of somebody, email, or however we're communicating with them, never leave that conversation without setting the next appointment. Somebody's going to say, well, Terry, how do you do that when you're emailing? Well, instead of saying, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to call me, reword that and say, I will give you a call Tuesday at 2:00 to discuss the opportunity that is for us, or however you want to end it. You stated that you're going to call them. And I'll even tell some of my clients, put that in as a PS, because we typically read the PS first. So it tells you I'm calling you. Now, people would say, well, what if they're not there? You lived up to your agreement. You left a voice message at 2:00 on Tuesday, and that person sees that you're serious. If they call you back, great, then you can move on with the process. The whole goal of the appointment phase is to discover the second phase, which is their needs phase. What is their needs? And always remember, wants and needs are 2 different things. So when I'm working with a client, I would say, okay, find out what the 5 things they want, and then put them in the order of their importance. Most people, if you say, give me 5 things that you want, they'll give you 5, but it won't be in the order of its importance.
Right. And unless you ask that question to people for them to order it, they haven't really thought about it. And you may get a different answer than you think. I totally agree with that. We don't ask enough questions to dig deep enough. We take those surface level and we don't dig deeper.
And I will encourage every one of your listeners to become more like Socrates, become a thinker. Okay. And we solve problems with logic. So make sure that when we're saying something, we've thought it through logically. Now, once we understand the customer's needs, then and only then can we deliver the solution. And then part of my process is make sure that when you're making your solution presentation, that you're listed the order of importance of their needs and cover the most important one first. You may not even have to get to 4 or 5, because if you handle the first 2 or 3 correctly, it's a matter of signing on the dotted line. I'll give you those 4 steps now, if you'd like.
Yeah, please.
Okay. The first thing in business or sales, as I said, all of us are sales. But the first thing we have to do is we have to make the decision that we're going to become not just sales people, but sales consultants. Okay. We have to make a commitment to learn everything there is to know about becoming a sales consultant in this day and age. Now, there's a problem with that, because most of the people you run into out there in this world, they're salespeople.
Distractions are the enemy of productivity. Go to distractionquiz.com and find out your distraction profile. Are you a time zombie or a hamster? Take this free distraction quiz today to rate your ability to focus on what keeps you from being a wizard. Go to distractionquiz.com.
Consultants are different. You Google that, you can look at the 2 different definitions, and you'll see there's a big difference between a consultant cares more about the customer than they do about the commission. So once we make that decision, we've committed to it. Now the second thing we need to do is we need to put disciplines in life that make sure that we're accomplishing our objective. So that means we read more, we devote 1 hour a day to our craft or to our sales consulting. So in 5 years or less, you'll be an expert at being a sales consultant. Then, once we have these disciplines in our life, we need then to make sure that we're being decisive. That means that I give every person on your listings, for every one of them to procrastinate on anything that doesn't take them towards their goals.
Right.
Now, in sales, one of the most important parts of this discipline is KPIs, key performance indicators. We must know whether the email, we split test the subject line, we test the script, we test everything, and we hone it in so that we get a good process. Now, the 4th and final step is you have to visualize yourself as being the most prosperous sales consultant in the industry. That means you visualize you walking out on the stage. You visualize every part of the sales process from the time you arrive at your sale 15 minutes early to the closing. Visualize every bit of it. So those are your 4 steps.
Great. I'd like to go back and talk about kind of disciplines in the context of, there's a lot of different disciplines. You talked about the one which is take an hour to hone your craft, to better your sales skills, to know the marketplace better. And that's absolutely key because so much information is available on the internet that if the person that you're talking to knows more than you, you may have a problem in making that sale. But what about the disciplines in terms of setting priorities and things like that? Let's talk about that a little bit, because I know that people feel like they're bombarded with so many things to do and almost everything feels urgent, right? And if they're an entrepreneur, it's our curse as an entrepreneur where we just make everything urgent and it's sort of like a gift and a curse at the same time. So let's talk a little bit about that in terms of disciplines and what you recommend.
Okay, there's a few, and they all start the night before. Okay, so the first thing that I always encourage people to do is learn to close out your day. So that means that you pick a time at the end of the day, just close it off. You can change each day. You can do one day at 4:30, doesn't matter. But you take half an hour or 45 minutes to look at what you did right, what you did wrong, and what you could have done better.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when we're looking at a 30,000 foot, so we can make differences, we can make changes. The next thing I have is that you take all the sales calls, all the things, all your action activities, everything you're supposed to do, and you put it in a to-do list the night before. That means you research the phone numbers that you call. If you got to go to an appointment, I've oftentimes driven to that appointment the day before, know exactly what door I'm supposed to walk in, arrive 15 minutes early. I mean, all of these things set you apart from the other salespeople. Think of it this way. If you were a fish, would you want to swim where all the school of fish are, or do you want to swim alone if you were the perfect appetite for a shark? Well, you'd want to swim alone. So study what others do and do none of it. Now, when you're breaking your hour down, right? I want to do things the right way. So when you're breaking your hour down, my rule is first 15 minutes is study the industry. Know what's going on in your world. Disney World is not concerned about Universal Studios. Their concern is Nordstrom's. Nordstrom's has the best guest experience of all companies rated, polling taking. So they just make sure that their guest has the same experience that Nordstrom does. Now, the second 15 minutes is based on a sales topic. Learn something about something to do with sales consulting. I'll give your listeners a website, followupsuccess.com. And what they'll find there is that it alludes to that 86% of the people start their buying process online. So it's more important for us to understand consumer knowledge rather than it is for us to know product knowledge. Got on a call the other day with a brand new recruit. He says, well, I think we can get started in a couple of weeks because I got to get all this product knowledge. I said, forget about the product knowledge. Go get a copy of all the stuff that you have for sale, put it in a 3-ring binder, and when the customer comes in and asks you a question, open the 3-ring binder and point to it. Third-party validation. That's what they're using the internet for. Think like they do.
Absolutely.
And then the next 15 minutes is a IT topic or a technical topic. That could be learning more about your CRM, learning how to use a CRM, learning more about social media, whatever it takes to keep your business moving forward through technology. And then the fourth quarter of the hour is spent role playing. And that means if you can go through how I'm going to talk to this customer, go through how I'm going to record this, whatever it is you're going to do, just role play it so you get a good visual of what's going to happen for the day.
I just want to highlight that point on role playing. I think that role playing is essential for any salesperson because, I've worked with many people myself in the context of different types of presentations and sales offerings. And what goes on in our head is perfect. But what comes out of our mouth is something entirely different. And so we might think that we're totally prepared for something, but in the role play, especially I encourage people to record it so that they can listen back and really pick it apart and really see in the language? What are you inferring? What kind of presuppositions are there? What's the energy that's coming across and so forth? I think that's so essential. I just want to highlight that for people, that role playing is not an option. It's a must if you want to stand out and bring your business to the next level in terms of sale. It's an investment that's going to turn into a sale.
I concur with you totally. Part of my career was director of franchise development for Globe Travel. And in that franchising, you can't take money from people for 14 days. So you have to keep them busy. So you have to keep them engaged in what they're doing. So when you're selling an intangible, it's a lot harder because you got to connect their dream. And a lot of times we couldn't even offer any validation of, but we would, for our salespeople, we would make them record so we could go to jail. In franchising, if you say something wrong in your presentation and they can prove it, it is jail time. And I used to tell my people, I do not look good in orange. So you be careful what you're out there telling them.
It's amazing when the consequence goes up, how much more disciplined we are. Yes?
Exactly. Exactly. But yeah, we found plenty of times people, like you said, they were saying things they shouldn't be saying. And they didn't realize they were saying them until they saw themselves on film.
Yeah, actually, I had that exact conversation with somebody recently that I was advising for their team. And until he heard the recordings, he's like, they shouldn't be saying this. And I said, well, you have to listen to what they're saying in order to hear what's really coming out.
Oh, yeah. And that gets us back to the scripts. And those people say they don't like scripts. This is the reason we have them.
Right. Exactly. And you can always bring your personality to something and modify. But you're right. It's because it ensures that there's a certain standard of bringing whatever it is across that you're going to be discussing and giving some structure to it.
Well said.
That's awesome. Well, there's been a lot of great nuggets here. Let me just look at my questions to see if there's any last burning questions to talk about here. Do you have anything in addition that you'd want to talk about around focus?
The way I get focused, or the way I like people to stay focused, is creating, each person should have at least 5 objectives per quarter. Now, an objective is not just a goal. It's like learning next 90 days I'm going to spend as a consultant. Okay, that learning a consultant, become more knowledgeable. But now we got to add a purpose to that, Penny, because, just saying I want to become a knowledgeable sales consultant, we got to have a why to go with it.
Absolutely. A goal without a purpose is kind of pointless.
It's a wish or a dream. It's not a real tangible thing, or it's something can be. And then we have to add one more component. This is one of the things I add, and that is the outcome we want. So the objective, become better at sales consultant. The reason why, it's going to further my career in sales, and the result is going to be contributing to the bottom line of my family's financial independence.
Absolutely. Right, that's really powerful. It tells you what you're going to do, right? Your objective is what it is you're going to do, why you're going to do it, and then what's the benefit? What are you going to achieve out of it? That's great. I love that. That will definitely increase people's focus on what it is that they're doing.
Exactly. And then they can break it down into baby steps. You can take that objective, and I call it a priority. They can take that priority, break it down into the 3, 4, 7 steps that it takes to accomplish it. And then they can use time management to focus on those baby tasks, and then spread it out over the 90-day period.
Right. And just for people listening, when you say then take time management into dealing with those individual steps, it's really scheduling the time. At the end of the day, everything else that we talked about here are elements of time management, right? Being able to focus on the right things is the first element of time management. And then it's getting it down into your calendar and making sure you spend the time and focused on what it is that's going to get you to the finish line.
It is. And when I first onboarding a client, the first thing we discuss is about their time management. And I take them through a time management assessment, because everybody's living on a 24-hour clock. Now they're going to add in me. I'm another 2 to 4 hours a week for you. Okay. So they're trying to figure it out. So I've learned over the years, let's take them through a time management assessment. And every time, Penny, every time we go through the exercise and they come up with, we leave the work schedule out of it. Okay. So everything else. So I want to know how many hours they're spending at work. And every time it'll come up like 72, 75, 80 hours. And I said, really, you're working 80 hours a week, 75 hours a week? And they go, no. I said, well, where's those 20 hours going then, dude?
Right. I do the same thing. Measurement is a really great thing because once people really get to see clearly where they are spending their time, it's an eye-opener. It's the same thing with food journals and things like that. You document it and then you're surprised at how little water you drink and how much sugar you eat and things like that.
Exactly. Writing it down is very powerful. And that's why a lot of people, even when they're writing their sales goals out, they're afraid to write it out because they're afraid of failure or rejection or whatever. But I can promise every one of your listeners,
they don't want to take ownership. Wait, I just want to say right here is let's face it, is we're lazy and we don't want something to come up that's going to give us something else to do.
Exactly. And the key here is that the Harvard Business School did an MBA study program on their MBA program for 1979, wrote a book about it. And they realized that only 3% of their graduating class had written plans for their life.
Right.
What they also realized was that those 3% of the people were making 10 times the money that the other 97% of the people were not.
Mm.
So I think I like writing my goals out.
There you have it. Absolutely. I think I do too. So Terry, tell people where they can reach you and what you have for them. Okay,
great. Thank you again. First, you can reach me at terryogburn.com, just my first last name. Also, I have ogburnsbusinesssolutions.com. Those are my two websites. You can find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, normal places, Terry Ogburn. And also, I have an offer for your listeners. If any of them are having a sales challenge or something I can help them with in sales, if they go to either one of my websites, hit the Contact Us button, it'll drop down, fill in the blank, send me your challenge. We'll set up an hour. I promise you no sales pitch, just us taking your challenge head on and coming up with a solution for it.
That's on which site? The Terry Ogburn site?
It's on both sites, terryogburn.com
okay.
and ogburnsbusinesssolutions.com.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being here today. I think there were a lot of nuggets, a lot of really key things for people to listen to and take away. And at the end of the day, they're simple, but they're not easy to implement. And so that's the key, is to be disciplined in bringing it all into practice.
Exactly. And thank you so much again, Penny, for having me on your show.
It's our pleasure. And to all of you who are listening, thank you for being here and really investing in yourself by listening to these tips and tricks that you're getting at Take Back Time so that you can work smarter, not harder. So this is Penny Zanker, and I'm your host, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye, everyone.
Thank you for listening. Today's topic is another opportunity for you to put the knowledge you learned into practice. Tune in again next week for more strategies that will help you have more energy and focus to get more done in less time, so you can continue to take back time.